Oh, this might be something of a ramble, but let's give it a go. There's two groups that have come to my attention through YouTube, through the community I like to try to evolve myself in sometimes, and mostly just watch from the sidelines, that have become somehow inexorably tied to atheism and the endeavors of popular atheist YouTubers. It's damn near inescapable. And these two groups, you would think, would have nothing to do with each other because very often their goals are at odds with each other, but they both seem to cause great strife and distress and existential agony in atheism. Tumblr Feminists and Creationist Christians. A often misogynist and baffling group that I can't understand. And an often misandrist and baffling group that I cannot understand. I've always kind of prided myself as an empathetic person. And usually when I'm talking to fellow atheists, I always would inevitably get into discussions with them about what makes these people think and behave the way they do. How could they behave in a way that is so irrational and so startlingly strange and unproductive? Who could be possessing of such self-delusion and just so thoroughly miss the point. I'm sure you guys have seen on the news this Sui Park character who has gleefully been attention grabbing at will by completely missing the point of a tweet that Stephen Colbert didn't actually put out. The Ching Chong Ding Long Foundation for Asian Sensitivity or whatever. And you could tell she had no fucking idea it was a joke, and when she was informed of it, she switched her tactic to "this is nothing to joke about, cancel Colbert." And then you have these Christians over here who project so heinously every fault that their position has onto their opposition, to the point of calling evolutionism a religion. And it's funny to talk to people who will use that argument, and when they are faced with a person like me, are afraid to outright say to my face, I'm talking about the Bible thumping wingnut guys, they're more than happy to call evolution a religion and faith to believe in science. I believe you guys have heard me call Len Matthew 4:19 out on his "worshipping at the altar of evidence" that you could see in the atheist invitational episode of the Bible thumping wingnut show, which had to be lame for all involved because Mr. Wingnut himself was notoriously silent. Saitan wasn't there, which was disappointing because that probably would have been really intimidating and exciting. And to see the guy who was the direct bullseye of all the hate that we send that show, and hate is a term used very lightly here before anybody gets upset. So, where am I going with this? You all know what I'm talking about, so I shouldn't spend too much time yammering on about what you all pretty much already know. You got these people who are admittedly unscientific, but want to claim science. They laud, there are these guys like Ken Ham and Ken Hovind with their degree mill bullshit. They see their champions get the floor fucking wiped with them whenever a guy like William Lane Craig or Ken Ham goes against a guy who actually knows what he's talking about. And thinks that their guy won. And thinks Ken Ham won against Bill Nye. When that was just the most savage ass whipping I've seen in a debate in a long time. And it was almost as if Bill Nye had an unfair advantage because he's never been to one of these rhetorical dance-offs. And there's almost an art form to the way Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris or the late great Christopher Hitchens would have gone through this process. And Bill Nye was like a fucking chainsaw. And just my favorite parts were just where Ken Ham is prattling on at his podium and you can't see Bill Nye behind him, just hating him. Just hating. Standing at the top of Mount Crumpet hating the Who's. Just, how dare you take any of what you're saying and tell anybody. You forget, I came here to keep you out of the classroom. I want you to stop speaking. Just that look. My problem with feminists, and this might be an extremely controversial statement because I already have to backtrack and say it's not my problem with feminists. It's my problem with Tumblr feminists, with the Anita Sarkeesians and the Rebecca Watsons of the internet. Is I don't understand how they can call themselves feminists and be taken seriously. I'm sure, since all of you are probably way more into the internet than I am, maybe not, you might have seen the first world problems memes. Whenever I hear Anita Sarkeesian or Rebecca Watson, I hear first world problems. And it's not a joke and it's not amusing at that point. It's offensive. There are women in the Middle East who are being abused, murdered, ritualistically mutilated in the genital area, beaten, just utterly maligned on the cultural level. We got babies getting flushed down toilets in China, with the problems they're having with overpopulation. People are just killing women. And I mean, it's not unheard of in other countries where dowries are still traditional for poor families to just kill baby girls because they can't think of having to pay a dowry when this kid has to get married off at 10 or wherever. And the plight of women and children, and mostly just women in Africa, is heinous. And I'm really hoping that because I'm not too familiar with these Tumblr feminists, that they are talking about this, and I just don't hear about it. But what I keep hearing about is white devil, white man, doesn't understand hardship, doesn't understand oppression, doesn't understand isolation or racism or bigotry. They afford nothing to the possibility of individual experience. I mean, have you seen that now famous viral interview that Sweet Park has where the guy just couldn't help but outright call her stupid to her face? And she's like, you wouldn't understand, white man. And he's like, very easily pointing out how racist and sexist she is. Is the correct answer to actual racism and sexism, even as it exists as a problem in Middle America, where I guess it does exist in some ways, but it's not really systemic. It's very easy to pull out the very real statistics and find out that a lot of women don't have these leadership roles that Van Bossy wants them to have, is because women bear children, and children cause tremendous strain on careers. A lot of these leadership roles they're thinking of, CEO, politician, leadership roles in entertainment, I guess. I don't know. When a woman has a child, that takes her out of work for a period of time, and it also is a life-changing event. A woman has to choose. A lot of these careers, lawyers, judges, politicians, require a tremendous amount of sacrifice of time and energy that is simply not really feasible to a mother who wants to spend real time with their children. And that really is, statistically, where a lot of this pennies on the dollar argument is, where women make 87 cents to the dollar of the man. And a lot of these women that you're seeing, are so rich that if they're mothers, they kind of can fill in the gaps with that money. And it's just so hard to listen to Anita Sarkeesian talk about this epidemic of, she got $160,000 in a Kickstarter campaign when she had a goal of, I think, $8,000. She's made 3 or 4 videos in the space of almost 2 years with $160,000 provided to her by her feminist fans. And her videos are terrible. She has been found guilty of pretty much lying about being a gamer. She's not. You can find footage of her saying she's not a gamer in lectures. It's been found true that she lifted without permission other footage of other people playing these games. It's not her playing the games. And it's not exactly copyright infringement, and it's not like she's guilty of theft. However, she does nothing to say, I didn't play this. She doesn't credit where she got the thing. I don't know if there's legal action to be taken there, but apparently not. It's just sheer dishonesty. And they claim so much abuse in the same way that these fundamentalist Christians think when people tell them, hey, it's not okay to be a bigoted asshole. And it's not okay in America, the land of the free, to try with all your might to take God-given rights away from other people because you don't like them. And I told you guys in Texas, it was amazing. A conservative judge just goes right out and says that in America, we cannot allow people to violate constitutional rights of other people just because they don't like them. And then they get to go and say, I'm the victim because people won't let me be a bigot. You're allowed to be a bigot, but you're not allowed to go into other people's lives and harm them, whether by legislation or by physical violence. You can be a bigot, but you need to realize that freedom of speech also is, we can tell you, as the real moral majority of the country, people who are not homophobic and not anti-women's choice, that you're wrong and you're an asshole. And we can shame you the same way you shame people who are gay and people who don't share your religious fervor. Apologize for the sprinklers going. Now next, we have these feminists who have YouTube channels with comments and ratings disabled, who go and say that all these people are sending them rape threats and death threats, and they have post-traumatic stress disorder and they fear for their lives. Now, when you express an unpopular opinion that is both wrong, hypocritical, just pure hypocrisy, and basically as these Tumblr feminists, and it's important for me to make that distinction because believing in women's rights does not automatically make you worthy of what I'm about to say about these particular kinds of people that exist on this internet, these privileged white Americans who claim that the privilege of white men discredits them, who believe in this rape culture where women who are portrayed in a sexy way or in an objectifying way, whether it's blatantly objectifying or slightly objectifying, who believe in this idea that women have been put down through art and culture by having traditional roles. I would like to see more women in movies as protagonists. I think that's really compelling. I've seen a few good movies in the past few years that I've liked, like Hannah, and unfortunately, I have to actually kind of reach a little bit. But there's a lot of movies with women as protagonists that are awful, like Sucker Punch and Salt. And that's unfortunate because women do deserve better in film, but it's not evidence of epidemic, systemic hatred and aggressive putting down of women. It's evidence of marketing people who are failing on a lot of fronts, giving us sequels and gritty reboots that we all complain about, just simply trying to gauge what's going to make the most money. And unfortunately, everybody, I guess, women included, are going and throwing their money at male protagonist action movies. And that brings me to, I guess, what I should have as my final point for this video, because it's getting a little bit long. I know a lot of women who just simply don't have a problem with traditional gender roles of women. There's a lot of women who like cutesy, pink, girly characters. There's a lot of women I've known, both growing up as a young person and as an adult, who don't even mind and even like the princess who gets rescued. And it's not the only thing they like. It's not necessarily that they liked it better. But most women I see who aren't, by the way, shrews or crotchety or spinsters or childish, they're just normal people, don't have a problem with traditional gender roles. And as much as they like when those traditional roles are broken, they don't seem to have offense at when they're just there. There's a lot of people who don't get pissed at the first tree in the forest, and when they see a video game or a movie where a woman needs to be saved because she's imprisoned, don't even think to be offended. And the scary thing is how these feminists have to tell these women, no, you should be offended and you should be ashamed if you're not. So, are we allowed to let these 1984 thought police, these censors, come in just because they're a member of women? See, it's that same argument that only white people can be racist and black people can't be racist. I don't know if anybody's seen Die Hard with a Vengeance, Die Hard 3. There's this great scene where Samuel L. Jackson's character has just been bitching at John McClane. Samuel L. Jackson's character's name is Zeus. And just being really rude to him constantly. And at some point, John McClane, who has been ignoring him because he's got his focus on these bombs and everything, just turns around and says, you know what your problem is? You're a racist. And Zeus is utterly baffled and put off by the very thought. And it is true that he, in the context of the story, obviously grew up in a situation and in a time and in a place where black people are extremely oppressed, and there still are to a point. Maybe more than just to a point. I'm not meaning to put that down, but what I'm saying is this is what's called professional victimhood, where there is no other way of looking at it other than this group is the victim. And I always like to imagine what this group would do if they had everything they wanted. Would they stop belittling and downplaying the opinion and the thoughts of white men? Would they stop seeing as white men as so threatening? Would they stop complaining about things that bother them and saying that anything that off-puts them personally is evidence of a systemic, objective, just horrible thing, this rape culture or patriarchy? And so many of these women are atheists and tie themselves to things like Skepticon and Atheism Plus. And with their vitriol, with their savagery, and with their inclusiveness, and their xenophobia and bigotry, destroy those organizations from the inside out and any good they could have done, because they are the thing they hate. They are exclusionist, sexist, racist, and hateful. But they couldn't think for a second that that's even possible. And just like Christians will the Bible in its entirety is true, because if you can question any of it, you can question all of it. When we start getting into this rape culture, you start seeing feminists screaming that there is no such thing as false rape accusations. Because if there was such a thing as false rape accusations, then there could be some counter to their claim that rape culture is an overreaching, all-powerful, undeniable thing that is horrifying. And then you got the Rebecca Watsons going, oh, by the way, you who tells me that you disagree with me, you're worse than rape culture. And they think that rape culture is the new Holocaust. If that doesn't tell you how selfish and spoiled these people are, then I don't know what does. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. I guess it would have been a little bit tighter of a video if I had kept harkening back to how they're the same as Creationists and Fundamentalists, but you get the idea. This is I think fundamentalist feminism is too much of an insult to real feminism. This is just straight up sexism. This is hate. This is everything that they accuse their detractors of being. It's just a hate group, and hopefully it'll pass away as a fad. All right. It started as sticking up for transgender and LGBT and oppressed women who do exist, who do need help, but they've long since missed the point of being a charitable cause with a righteous thing behind them. They're just a hate group. And there's a reason why they're getting all these death threats, because what they're getting is trolling. Okay? And anybody who expresses an opinion so blatantly hypocritical get the wrath of the internet, because with anonymity comes visceral natures of responses. Visceral like, visceral defense, visceral dislike, visceral attack. And these people are so wrong that they're getting an extremely visceral response. But you can't take someone seriously who can't take what they dish out. I would probably have much more respect for these Tumblr feminists if their YouTube shit had comments enabled, likes and dislikes enabled, and if they would actually have the nerve to look at the dislikes and maybe read some of the comments that aren't just obviously disgusting trolling, and in accepting a reasoned argument. But look, they're just going to block you if you contact them. They're going to tell you that you are a rape supporter or a rapist. If they really don't like you, they're just going to falsely accuse you of rape. Okay, that happens pretty consistently with these people. I mean, first of all, I guess at the end here, I'm going to show a shout out to a new YouTuber who's picking up a lot of steam. This guy is amazing. Look up The Armored Skeptic. I'm going to put a link to his channel below. His videos are utterly hilarious. The guy is extremely honest and candid and finds the worst of the worst to elbow drop. And if you believe his very first video is a very candid expression of who he is and the process he went through as a believer, as a Christian, through his lengthy and difficult deconversion, through a process of being a very fervent believer in everything that he threw his hat into, and his last stop before reaching our plane of existence, unfortunately for him, was Atheism Plus, where he was called a rapist and nearly lost his job because they started slandering him on Facebook. I don't know, the guy is anonymous. Could be lying. But I strongly doubt that. Because it's their MO. And let me come right out and say, you can call me whatever you want. And if you disagree with me, I'm not going to disable your comments or tell you not to like or dislike me. And maybe I can have such nerve because I'm not so popular that a bunch of Tumblr feminists even know who I am. But if they show up, I stand by every word of it. And I don't think you're a feminist. If I really thought you're a feminist, I would show you a lot more respect. You're a sexist. That's really enough out of me. Thanks for watching, and see you later.